Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the December 9th meeting of the Planning Matters Subcommittee. We're to continue our discussion. The meeting is being recorded on LCAT, and I see, unless there's a conflict, somebody tell me to the contrary, nobody else is recording this meeting, correct? That is correct. We have a full quorum of all subcommittee members. We also have in the crowd, John Torsha, Councilor Tom O'Connor, Jane Matlowski, attorney for a petitioner who has an interest in this project, and John Takena, who is a part of the petitioner.
John Torsha, Planning Board.
Did I say John Torsha, Planning Board?
You didn't say Planning Board.
Oh, Planning Board member.
We want to give
Very
you
important. I want to make
credit.
sure. You get extra plug there. All right, what we're going to do is, I was not here for the last meeting. Marilyn did a fantastic job running that. So she's going to, right now, I'm going to turn it over to her to hit some of the bullet points from today. Just a reminder to everyone, too, this is going to be a very efficient meeting. We only have this room till 12 o'clock. So I am not going to allow, as a matter of what we've done in the past, comments from the audience unless I feel it's necessary. So it's going to be strictly using the time that we have. Without any further ado, Marilyn.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. Now, after our last meeting, I revised the document. You received it, Jane?
I did.
John, did you get it?
Yes.
Okay, so apparently some of the board members, for some reason, didn't get it. So we're going to just quickly go through the areas that we should probably be discussing today.
Please.
I see nothing on the first page. The second page, okay, let's see. There was, under the definitions, there was a definition of recreation. Definition of recreation, which we had deleted, and Ms. Connie was concerned that we need a definition for recreation in the bylaws, which we can still put under definitions, but we felt that the location of the definition there was unnecessary. So that, my feeling is that we've discussed that sufficiently, and we could add the recreation definition if they want, because we have other definitions that we will be adding. Are we okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Add.
And also, I said it creates also some confusion when we have a definition within one section, and then we're also using recreation
Right.
within other sections, so I think that makes sense.
So as far as we're concerned, that's it for that discussion, because
Correct.
that definition will be in the, under section 8.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the third page. There's an asterisk next to section 2.13, provide additional housing. We've had some discussion about inclusionary zoning, and so that needs to be addressed before we button this up. There was a suggestion as to where to locate this. I think we need to figure out what language we want to add and then figure out where best to put it. So that's still out there. So inclusionary zoning. We have, we buttoned up all the definitions at the last meeting. Under 3.22, the total gross floor area for commercial, that needs to be discussed, decided. And then, under maximum density of 12 units per acre, that was also being discussed in conjunction with the ratio of commercial to
What number is that?
residential. I'm sorry?
What number was that?
I'm sorry, right
4.2.
below 4.2.
4.2, okay,
Right.
thank you.
So that's
Yep.
3.22 and then 4.2.
Okay.
And then, does anyone see anything else that we're holding off on?
Section 8, Community Association.
I'm sorry?
Community
Oh,
Association.
huge issue, thank you. It's right there. That was your concern
Yeah,
about the-
I'll talk about that. when we
Okay,
get to
all
it.
right. And
And we're we're good on the parking,
The
correct?
parking was
Good.
voted on, and
Yes.
welcome, Paul Pichetto. Okay, so we have community association, the density, the commercial percentage, and the inclusionary zoning. So that's what we need to.
So, can I jump in just one quick second? When I was
Sure.
going through the document, section 3.15, it's in the mixed-use village development, the following uses are permitted. Section 3.15, recreational facility and open space including community buildings. We have two definitions for recreational facility. One is a commercial, one is a private. Are we saying both of them are allowed, one or the other?
My first reading and second reading of this was, it was pretty much one, it would be recreational facility, but not necessarily commercial. I mean, if we're thinking of like a batting cage and things of that nature, then that's, are we starting to cross the lines between that and the 20% business use?
I did that.
Actually, we have all three definitions. So recreational facility is a place designed and equipped for the conduct of sports, leisure time activities, and other customary and usual recreational activities.
Right.
Then we have one for commercial and one for private. Are we,
Is there, in looking at the definitions, is there anything that
Think about that.
would preclude a mixed-use district, village district? In other words, if it was the wish of the village to have a public facility for that matter, if that were their choice, would there be any reason to be concerned about that, based on what the definition, how the definition reads?
I don't think so. I mean, the only reason I brought it up was, again, we had talked previously about a recreational facility.
Correct.
Being like a
Yeah.
stadium. And that's why I just wanted to make sure that what we're allowing by right is what we actually want.
The definition for a stadium is under area for sporting activity. And that was under the table of uses, which we have eliminated based on the definition because of the scope of that kind of an
Yep.
activity. So I mean, I'm not seeing a concern, but
Keep in mind that the recreation or any recreation facility can take up the commercial space too. If we want 20%, you can put,
absolutely.
and to me, that's a concern.
That's a concern that it would take up the commercial piece.
It's an easy way to do it. If we're gonna require X amount of commercial space, and any developer sees it as unreasonable, you can come in with any type of commercial to take up space.
I know, because there was discussion about storage facilities at the last meeting.
Okay?
So I think this falls under the correct heading then, recreational facility, and leave the commercial private as a separate definition, and this would be like a ballpark or something like that outside.
Now the question.
Not a business.
Now, the question is, as Marilyn alluded to, is if the ballpark, is it just for the residents of the facility? Is it a track for the residents? Now we start getting into where the town would be interested in it. They're gonna be dealing with the association. It'd be similar if they had open space over at a condo, like Elmcrest.
But I think
Elmcrest-
that's similar to like the fields at Lennox. You know what? They allow the town to use them, but that doesn't mean that it's a commercial use or
Right.
anything like that.
So-
That's an agreement down the road.
And that won't affect at all so we're not allowing necessarily commercial facilities. Let's say Fenway Golf wants to open Fenway Golf in there. That would not be applied to the 20% of commercial.
I think it's silent
That
on
would-
that right now.
That's what I was
Yeah.
wondering about.
Exactly.
Yeah, so they said, listen, we're gonna have a
That
recreational
would go under the
facility, but
schedule of uses.
we're gonna hire a company that's a professional at creating these things, they're gonna manage that. So now that they're a professional facility and you pay X number of dollars to use it, does that now start eating up into the 20%? Or is it, by recreational facility, we mean something that's not for profit in any way that it's going to be managed by the association for the benefit of the association and the town if the association so desires.
And if we do not put it in this bylaw, is it not allowed?
So, by right, the way it's worded right now, it's a place designed and equipped for the conduct of sports, leisure time activities, and other customary and usual recreational activities. That's the way it's set up. So in other words, like you said, an open field, a ballpark, a recreational area. Under the schedule of use, we may allow recreational, commercial as a special permit or something like that if we so choose. But by right, what they have right now, the way it's worded is that they can have a field and stuff like that. Like I said, just knowing that we had multiple definitions, I just wanted to make sure that we hit on what we were actually looking at.
I just want to make sure it's not an unintended workaround as far as the 20%, that they're going to say, listen, we have 50 acre, or, 5 acres of land that we're using for this type of facility and recreation facility, and it is a commercial facility where people pay to play in a executive par 3 course or something of that nature, and we want that applied toward our commercial.
And I think that'll come up when we discuss the actual commercial amount on the percentage.
Question, we have membership clubs for large social, recreational, and community center organization. On the table of uses, it's allowed currently in this document under mixed use, under special permit.
Yep.
As far as, area for sporting activity, it's not allowed. That's the
Yep,
arena,
exactly.
the civic center, that
Yep.
sort of thing. Under recreational facility, commercial and private, currently it says yes. Now, is there interest to put that under special permit? Where it would give the planning board more latitude to look at that type of use a little bit more closely in terms of the impact.
I'm trying to
I
weigh,
mean,
trying
I'm
to
thinking
weigh the pros and
commercial
cons of
would
that.
be batting cages, maybe a mini golf, something on that idea.
But I think we
Because
should
I
have
think we've
language
already
that it will
taken
not
out
count
the
toward the
large
20%.
ballpark and all.
It won't count toward the 20% of the commercial or business requirement for the facility. That could be on, that should be on top
Or
of it.
would it?
But why?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
All right, so
I mean, we're
basically-
looking
is
for
a commercial.
internet
All
resistant
right.
type uses, and that would be one of them. As long as this, I think that under special permit, it would hopefully,
So you could have an entire, in theory, you could have the entire facility, condos and apartments, and then the commercial component can be entirely a commercial sports facility? Is that, if that's what we're talking about, then that's one thing. I thought we were trying to get more brick and mortar type buildings within there for restaurants and
That's
see.
possible. I don't see any developer doing that.
but
Yeah.
it's under special permit. The recreational facility, commercial and private, is under special permit in the industrial zone. It's under special permit in the golf recreational zone. And it's not allowed anywhere else in our town, except for now it's listed, yes, under mixed use. And if we leave it there, it should be under special permit to give the
I think I would
planning
leave
board.
it, but make a suggestion that it goes under a special permit, and that way there, if it's batting cages, hey, it's no big deal. If it's, like you said, 100,000 square foot sporting complex, now it's something that they've got to consider.
Because at our last meeting, we discussed storage as
Okay,
well.
he'll be next.
Yeah.
Connor?
I thought when we went over the table of uses last time, there was already a separate line item for like large arena type things that was already now.
Yeah,
So
correct.
wouldn't that preclude it
Correct.
anyway?
Well, they're both under the table of uses. We've got area and facility for sporting activity, which is definitely a no. And then below it says recreational facility, commercial and private. And right now, it's a yes. And so, in terms of the the commercial assignment to a commercial, for the ratio, I can understand what the struggle is. And how do you communicate that? If you put it under special permit, you have to have faith, hopefully, that the planning board will look at that. But things are always different board to board, so.
I'm in favor of leaving it as is.
Okay, you're in charge, not me.
Yeah, no. I
I was sure, you gave me the power last time.
It's about what we're all doing together.
Right.
All right, so in my theory, Connor, just a theory, you come in and you have all, they come in with a sports facility and no sundry stores, no restaurant, nothing. It's all structure and one taking up 20% of one facility. Is that gonna be okay? Or are the requirements that you can't have a facility, a commercial piece more than certain square feet? One at this side, is that the safety net that we can have in there that protects us?
Well-
That's kind of where I'm going with it, that I think we have a safety net because you can't put in a 5-acre piece because that 5 acres would exceed the size requirements we have for commercial. Are we in agreement on that?
Actually, down under 321, it says one single use with up to a maximum of 25,000
So
square
I
feet.
think we have a built-in safety on there.
Right.
Okay, good. That's kind of where I was wondering, is what our intent was. Are we saying that we're not going to apply it all because we have that built-in safety already in there?
And I also think, if I may, excuse me, that, we're struggling with a balance of residential and commercial uses. And we recognize that the retail piece is weak, and the market is weak in some areas. It's not to say that some things won't succeed, but we understand that right now it's weak, and so we have to think outside of the box with respect to internet-resistant uses. And I'm sure there'll still be coffee shops and restaurants and perhaps a village mart or something. Because that's the piece that's gonna satisfy your residents.
Right.
So I can't imagine that they're gonna take the entire commercial piece and make it into a storage facility or a recreational facility.
Okay.
But we have to be sensitive that there will be other uses that are different.
Yes.
If we want the balance of the residential to the commercial.
Yeah, I think that's what they mean, but, I think that's a better mixed use than, is to have, and I'm really, and my read is that 3.21 gives us that protection. And, as far as having one particular single outdoor use, calling it commercial, satisfying the 20% requirement,
Do we,
or up to 20.
do we want to leave it as a yes, or do we, because it's a special permit in the other districts in the town, do we want to change the one in mixed use to a special permit to give the planning board a little bit
Yes,
more?
yeah.
So is that the only place that it's a yes? And the other, it's a no most places,
It's-
2 places, it was special permit?
It's two, yes, it was no, it was no in the commercial district, it was no in the business district. It's only allowed in the industrial district under special permit and the golf recreational district under special permit.
Through the chair, let's put it in a special permit. It won't be that difficult. We put our trust into the planning board at that time, and we move on.
I agree.
Because
I mean, the reason for something is, let's say you do put a ball field in there and you're playing competing teams, and all of a sudden you have parking flow issues and traffic, so it should be in their special permit.
Do you want to take a vote so that we're clear?
I think so. I'm looking around everybody. Are we on the same page?
I'm not sure, I need.
You're okay with a special permit?
I mean, I think there's enough restrictions already built into the rest of it that I don't know if it's necessary, but
But we don't have it as a Y anywhere. We have it as special permit or no's. So you,
Which makes sense, given that those districts are a bit more wide open and they don't have 25,000 square foot limits into the bylaw. But here, I'm not sure that it's entirely necessary.
I think in fairness, we just need to vote on it.
all right, let's take a vote. Do we want to have it under special permit? A yes vote means yes, and a no vote means no. So, all in favor of special permit for recreational facility, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay?
Nay?
And that
Okay.
needs to be in a form of a motion and seconded.
All right.
I move that we have the special permit for the zone. Can I hear a second?
We move that we have a special
Permit for 3.15 to add
Yes.
under special permit.
Correct.
Right.
All right, so,
Second.
okay, motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No, all righty.
Okay. Thank you.
2, 1.
Okay, back to,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Want to start with inclusionary housing?
Yep, real back to that, now we're at 2.13. All right. We need to go over for the people why we are even considering inclusionary housing, or do you want me to do a summation of it, or just
Why don't
go
you
right
just-
into it?
Summation.
Summation, please.
Basically, one of the reasons is the project, because of its size, and being promoted as concierge living, in its own, suggests that it may, if the entire project is sold out, would have an adverse effect on the town's affordable housing. And we're mindful of this because there was a project in New Jersey by the same petitioner under a different name, where they were approved by Morris Plains, and the numbers for inclusionary housing were adversely impacted and went to the state, and the state allowed another 200 units in there. And so, being aware of that, I think it's prudent for us to make sure that we're on top of it at this point, and to have an inclusionary housing provision in here so that our ratios are not adversely impacted on this. I remember, and I think Marilyn remembers, being in town government of Benton Estates. And Benton Estate being on the planning board, all we did was had our arms tied behind our back, and it was approved through the ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals, with the state saying the statute refers to as anti-snob zoning. So when we put in a project like this with about 500 units that are concierge, high-end living, it doesn't lend itself to being treated as inclusionary, or, and I use the word, I don't say low income, I say affordable housing. Affordable housing is different. Affordable housing is different based on community and defined by community. Affordable housing in Springfield is a different affordable housing than, say, Charlton or another community as well. It's a ratio of the median income of the town and so forth. So I want to be very clear, I am not using the term low-income housing, I am using the term affordable housing. That's a different term. So anyway, I think is there any other points anyone wants to mention?
And I just wanted to add that, you know, the regional fair share is important. You know, that's one of the reasons why we're talking about this. However, there's a need in our community. There are folks that can't purchase condominiums, and they will not be able to purchase or lease the higher-end luxury offering that we anticipate. Now, this bylaw can't legislate value. We can only legislate value. So, you know, I don't know ultimately what the price point will be. We only know what we've been told. But to have a protection in place, it might assist individuals to stay in East Long Meadow rather than having to leave our community.
Especially, I think there's and you're tuned into it as well, Marilyn, is that in the senior community, the over 55. We have people that are now empty nesters, but they love East Long Meadow. They love the schools. I mean, they send their kids through the school system. like the churches, the community features and so forth, and they don't want to move to Connecticut or just another, adjoining community. They want to stay in town. And they're more on limited incomes because of, like retirement and so forth. And that type of, I think, would be beneficial on that, so.
So how do we do this?
Just through the.
We've had some information that we've reviewed from other communities.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is come up with ratios. Now, I did speak with the petitioner's other attorney, Attorney Fitzgerald, and he seemed to be receptive to talk to his client as long as a number was a number plus. So let's say for simplicity's sake, we're talking 500. So if we add 10% to that, it'd be 550. Now, again, this is coming from the
Yeah.
petitioner's side. I'm sorry, the petitioner is, we're gonna be reminding everybody, I keep
don't
reeling
have a
back in.
petitioner.
The petitioner
So-
is the planning board, but what the impetus was, the developer to the planning board, us, okay?
Correct.
So everybody's up to speed who's joining us for the first time over here. So the question then is, do we want the inclusionary within? Now, I've looked into Boston, Amherst, and other communities, and some of them have it as high as 13%. I think I could probably live with 10%, because that is the number. The number certainly would bring our number a little bit north, and it certainly wouldn't put us in any worse situation than we are now,
Our number a little bit north.
of
7%.
is where we are right now.
Right. I
Whereas-
understand that.
yeah.
Because you started with, a number plus, and so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, the
what you
number
were-
plus was, when I was talking to Attorney Fitzgerald, it was.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I hear you now.
Give
I
me
just
this
wasn't
plus
sure.
this number, not within the number.
And FYI, we're at 7% now in East Long Meadow
That's our
for
understanding.
affordable housing.
Actually, we were at 7% with the 2010 census. 2020 census, we have not added any more affordable housing. And so the numbers are anticipated to drop, and so the percentage.
So do we want to
would be
bring, do we
lower.
want to do like some other communities and bring that number up to, nope, I'm seeing, no,
No,
okay.
no.
Keep it at 10?
Now you're looking at, so of every 100 units, 10 would be designated affordable. Is that?
Right, as,
Okay.
right.
Brownstone, just because I happen to know Brownstone, has market rate, affordable, and low income. And the rates are established based on income, obviously, and they're integrated quite successfully. And it's a challenge, but I think it's doable, that you will have apartments in close proximity to one another, and you don't know unless your neighbor tells you what their income is and what they're paying, that everyone is treated on an equal basis. And I would anticipate that whatever goes forward, whoever develops something like this would also be, it would be treated the same way.
I would think so, I would hope so.
With this, if we did the 10%, that would pretty much bring us in compliance with the state.
No.
Well, we're,
And again-
maybe based on the 2010 numbers, it would bring us up closer to it, but our 2020 numbers have yet to be determined, so.
And in Maryland, you mentioned the numbers could drop some.
Well, because those numbers were based on the 2010 census. When I attended a planning board meeting and there was a representative from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission who discussed affordable housing, apparently the state is not, on a witch hunt to see, okay, East Long Meadow, you're just slightly below, so we're gonna push this housing development on you. They're trying to raise awareness, and I think this would be a start, this would be a show of good faith.
Absolutely.
I'm not thinking we're gonna fix the problem, but we're moving in the right direction. And if there's another development in the future,
Right.
then it could possibly address it further. That would be my opinion.
I would think so. We could have a standard where it's a percentage of any projects over 100 units or 50 or whatever number we can have as we move forward. That over there. Go.
Through the chair, yeah, I was at the planning board meeting, and a lot of these communities are nowhere near their 10%, so it's not like we're the only community
Right.
in that space, so it's not necessarily a very bad thing, but yeah, the state hasn't really gone after it, just leaves us kind of vulnerable in the future if they did start going after or being more aggressive with pumping communities up to that 10%.
But we have something that some of the other communities don't have, land. And that's what the developers would want. Because we do have a fair amount of undeveloped land in this community as well.
In terms of the language that we need to somehow factor into this document, aside from 10% of the total number of units, residential units developed, do we want, because the median income will fluctuate. It fluctuates, you know, it's higher or lower depending. Do we want to somehow affordable based on the East Long Meadow median income, which is, I believe, 60% of the affordable is 60% of the median income.
And the median income was determined also in the census, or has that been updated?
No, I can't tell you, you know, it'd probably be the Mass Housing Authority that would establish the median income. I'm not sure who actually.
That's true, you're right. If you're doing a mass housing loan, they have standards per each town.
They do.
They do, yeah.
Right.
Also, through the chair, are we looking at every unit? Are we looking at just condos, just apartments? Or are we looking at every unit built?
No, I think the way
Residential
the
unit.
original
Residential units, so,
presentation was, it's gonna be just residential units, yeah.
okay.
And whether it's residential apartment, residential, it's still affordable housing, or condo, still affordable housing.
So through the chair, I'm in favor of a 10%. I don't think it should be added on to the number. I think it should be included. So if we're doing 12 units per acre, and there's 40 acres, that's 480 units. The 48 would be included in that. But I do think that because we're writing a bylaw, we may look at that this doesn't kick in until there's at least, let's say, 100 units in a new district or a new development. I just think, you know, you can't do it on 10 and say, oh, one's gotta be affordable. I think the development has to have a minimum number of housing units before this kicks in.
That makes sense.
So we'd have like 100, after the first 100 occupancy permits?
Doesn't your minimum acreage protect you from that?
As far as the
That this
number of
project's
units.
big enough to warrant it? Right, if you're a minimum of, I don't remember
You
what our
need
minimum is
40
anymore, but-
acres for
Right.
the development, or for the district. And we're saying that 12 residential units per acre, up to 12 can be done. But do we have a minimum? So in other words, you may have a 40-acre development and will only choose to develop, put in 100 units. I don't think that's feasible, but.
But you have an affordable requirement, so make your development big enough to accommodate it.
So Ralph, you're saying if 10, once, say 10 to 20% is completed, there needs to be affordable housing kicking in.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if you're doing less than 100 units, but this is the mixed-use development that we're doing the bylaw
Yeah.
on, so. So I mean, I think I'd be okay with the 10%. I mean, I'm just trying to think out loud and just see if there's, I don't want someone that's only putting in, 60 units to have to kick into affordable. What I was thinking is new developments and stuff like that.
Well, some communities, what they do is they have the threshold is the number of units. So we could have, some have it as, like, sounds like Boston might have it as if you put a project with more than 10, hypothetically. I'm trying to remember the exact number. They might require it because, it's very expensive, very pricey to do that. So they may want 1 or 2 units. I think they have 13%. We can have it if the project calls for over 100 units. So if somebody comes in with a smaller than 100 project as in total, again, but we're not talking about phasing either. We're talking about
We're talking 40 acres here.
yeah.
And we're doing 10%, we're discussing the 10%
It kicks in on,
affordable housing.
right.
So my guess is, if I were a developer, I'd want to get as many houses built as possible and then be in compliance. So do we really need a percentage as we move
That's
along?
kind of what I'm thinking like you are, so, same
Okay.
thing. I think it might be just from the onset, that they know the project the approved project is not gonna be coming in with 100 units. It's gonna come in with close, 480 or whatever. And if that's the case, I think that should be put in, because there might be a way to create a better design flow on it, where you have the affordable housing either within or separate, whatever. At least that's something the planning board can consider, but at least it's already accounted for in there.
Okay.
That's kind of what my
So
thoughts are.
simply do a percentage, and that's 10%
Yep,
in the development has to be affordable housing.
right.
I'm okay with
Marilyn, what do you think?
Yeah, help me, there's something in here, I can't seem to find it. I thought that we had put in a, if the development was built in phases, that the ratio of,
that. Yes.
where is it?
Page 4, 3.22,
I knew his eagle eyes would find it.
Yeah, it's right here.
the very top, any phasing of a development shall include the required
Thank you.
minimum ratio of non-residential to residential uses.
Okay, does that have,
And we gave it a vote of an okay on that, I believe.
yes, we did.
Yeah,
The issue of the ratio is still to be discussed, but the other was okay. The question is, does that impact on what the discussion we just had? That if you're phasing it, then there would be a certain percentage of affordable in per phase. 10%.
Well, I think the 10% would have to fall in, because if they did half of the development, let's say 200 units, 20 of them would have to be
Right,
affordable.
right. And in addition to the commercial complement, whatever that
Right.
is. Okay, I'm happy with that.
I think,
Thanks.
are you
Thanks,
getting
Ralph.
at the fear that they'll wait till, any developer would wait till the very end and do the affordable housing?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. That's
Through-
exactly.
Through the chair, could I suggest a method?
please do.
Some of
Since
the
you've done this before.
Yes. Some of the states that we work in, they phase it in. So when 25% of your residential units are constructed, you need to have 10% of your affordable units constructed. When you get to 50%, you catch up. So at 50%, you're at 50%. And that carries through, so when you're at 75%, you're at 75%. When you're at 90% of your residential units, all 100% of your affordable units are built. And I would suggest that that be a similar phasing schedule for our commercial percentage as well.
Would you be able to
Yes.
send us a copy of that, of a draft, one of those, please?
Yes.
Jane? Right, thank you.
And through the chair, that sounds great.
Yep. Hey, that's, like I said, we don't
I
wanna
mean, we know
reinvent the
what we
wheel.
wanna
If the
say,
wheel's
we
already
just-
out there, let's take a look at it, and maybe we can kind of like shimmy it a little, but that's about.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So we're gonna table this, they're gonna, so for our next meeting, we'll go into, we'll have a chance to review it. Probably the
Find
next few
out.
days you'll have it for us?
I'll have it this afternoon.
Okay?
Well, we know the percentage is 10%.
that's what we're looking at.
Correct.
I mean, so do we need a vote that it's going to be 10%
I-
inclusionary
I
housing?
think let's table it until we can.
Let's
we
do it
can
all at once.
Do it all at once with that
Okay.
other thing. So we're gonna put this
I'm good with
onto,
that.
onto the next one here.
Okay. Now, the next one was the percentage commercial versus,
3.22?
right.
Okay. And I don't think I heard anything at the last meeting that changed any of the, so it's just back to discussion again. 20 to 30 is the numbers we're still talking about?
Through the chair, I
Please.
had brought up 10 to 13%, and I know in some discussion, a few people seem to be willing to lower it to 20%. I still go by the supply and demand issue,
and the fact that we do have empty storefronts in East Long Meadow, and if we have at least 2 or 3 of these projects, it's not, to me, I wouldn't want to move into any area that's got empty storefronts. I would rather see a vibrant development where people live and people want to go. It's just my opinion, but I believe supply and demand, and if, you know, we already have trouble filling part of the Center Square area at times. So, again, that's my feeling, and I feel anything above even 13% would be detrimental in the long run.
So if you're
Okay.
looking at a 10% to 90% residential, you're okay with 90% residential?
Absolutely.
Because,
Because it's not just about one development, it's about the entire town. We've got commercial and retail in the center of town, in the northern part of town. We're looking to bring it to the southern part of town. I feel that if the economy drops, we're gonna have empty storefronts.
no, I'm talking about the residential piece. And-
Yes, I am very comfortable with that.
Okay, okay.
Through the chair.
Connor?
I echo the sentiment that I think 20% is too high, because I think, you know, if the whole point of this bylaw is to not work just for a single project, it might be possible that the first developer that comes in could meet these percentages even if they seem high. But that could preclude any future developer from wanting to move into town, and therefore we just created a bylaw that only helped one particular applicant.
I have a comment.
Please, Marilyn.
I don't I understand, I don't disagree that we are looking at other developments potentially in other places. And that's why, I mean, the pieces that we've looked at online, where there have been mixed uses in other communities, with a residential piece of in excess of 400 units, has a much greater commercial piece, because they're located in urban areas where there's rail, there's, public transportation, there's access. We don't have any of that anywhere in East Long Meadow. And in fact, it was Westboro that had a pretty large commercial piece. Their residential piece is, I think, around 200 units. So I'm not looking for a huge residential development. I have heard that from the planning board from the beginning. We don't want a huge residential development, and that's what they gave us. They gave us 5% and a 95% residential development. And we're not certain what we will see. We're not certain the price point of what we will see. And I think, is the town ready for this? And, if we're not gonna balance out the residential piece with more commercial piece, then we need to bring the residential piece down. Because, 20 to 30%, we've talked about other internet-resistant uses. We've talked about, the last meeting you mentioned a storage area. Maybe a small storage area might be suitable for this type of use for the residents who are leaving houses and not wanting to get rid of their
Christmas trees and
their
things like
stuff.
that.
So they have a storage area. We were just talking today about a recreational facility. There are other areas that we can look at to make that balance, for lack of a better word, growth management. I'm not looking personally for a huge residential piece at 330 Chestnut.
I think, to me, by having the word village added into it is, I believe, the whole concept of live, work, and play on the same footprint. That's the attraction. I mean, we're not looking at creating Eastfield Mall, East Long Meadow. Okay, I mean, that certainly would be attractive living and building housing on top of the mall and being able to walk around and have a CVS there and all this kind of stuff. But the same token, we also don't want to be having the Hilton or Marriott Courtyard East Long Meadow either, where a hotel basically might have a restaurant and a little sundry store where you can pick up a couple things either. So I think there's a balance. If we're creating a village, there's a balance between the extreme of having a Marriott hotel and the Eastfield, or a mall conversion.
Right, right.
And I think the numbers that we have go more toward that middle direction. Now, if you want to massage it a little bit, 15 to 25, I wouldn't be adverse to that, but I'm just talking massaging it, not taking these numbers down, because I want to take it away from the hotel.
Through the
Yep,
chair,
go ahead, Sid.
my feeling is we've already got a maximum we can have, and we have to have faith in any developer that comes to town. They want to fill this. They're not looking at saying 5%. If there's a bad economy, I mean, I know of a few very nice developments in the area where the developer said, it's like, we're bringing in high-end, and he brings in something that's not considered high-end, and his comment is, I have to fill the building, I have to pay the bills. So my feeling is if we keep it at 20%, any developer has to pay the bills, no matter what. And we may start getting businesses that we don't want in town. We have to trust the planning board again,
So-
but my feeling is 10 to 15% would be a safe minimum, and keeping some trust with the developer.
We all were part of Center Square. And if you remember the renderings, if you remember the anticipation of this walking mall that we were gonna have, it was sort of like a Currier and Ives type of look with the lampposts and I mean, the renderings were beautiful and it didn't really pan out that way. It's a little shopping center, it is, and it certainly improved the center of town. And it provides services to our community, good restaurants, but it's not what we envisioned, because the market was what drew the mattress store.
Correct.
Or, another large pharmacy, which is a good pharmacy, but the point is, it's not what we thought it was gonna be, and so, who knows?
Correct.
Who knows?
So, through the chair,
Please.
I believe when we were talking roughly 15%, I believe the developer had said that's roughly 100,000 square feet of commercial that we would need. So what I did is, and if you want to take one and hand it down, I took off of our GIS the parcel with the building that exists, and then I took our measurement tool and I carved out what a single floor, and I've got a copy for you, what 100,000 square feet would look like.
About the size of the high-rise building,
Actually,
the existing one, it's about 124,000 square feet.
that I couldn't tell you as far as the high-rise. All I did was take the measurement tool. So if we're on a single floor,
See it in front.
and, I mean, we can go up to 3 stories high for square footage. What you're looking at here is 100,000 square feet, which would be the commercial aspect of it.
And
If-
that's 15%?
I believe we had talked roughly 15%
was-
was somewhere around 100,000
I thought it
square
was-
feet.
Okay.
So literally, if you did, let's say, commercial offices on a second floor and retail down below, you would cut that size in half. Being a
Right.
50,000 square foot building, it just gives you a visual, more of a visual as far as the size of the lot, what we're looking at on the commercial. I think 20%, I've been thinking long and hard about it, and I don't want storefronts open. But I think we need to go at least 15% on this. I don't want this to be a little Starbucks here or there and just basically all housing. I think this needs to be a place on the south end of town where residents from the town say, hey, I wanna stop there for this, and while I'm here, hey, let me walk around these shops. I think done right, with a good mix like that, it could be great. I think the developer could look at it and say, with 15%, hey, that's gonna entail, 25,000 square feet of that may be self-storage units.
30% would be twice that. So we're hoping.
Yeah, like I said, numbers?
Just a reminder through the chair.
Yes,
is that
Joe.
The last time we had the conversation about it is that if you had 3 other developments, or if we had 3 developments coming in, that's where we left off at it. That's 300,000 square feet of retail, and that, or commercial space, and that's where we had left it.
And how many residential units would we have?
Have 3 projects.
Yeah, right. So that's the whole piece. You know, I'm looking at a balance for a mixed use. And, you know, we could argue 10%, 15%, 20%, but if we still have this number up there of 480 or 400 units, depending on the size of the parcel, obviously, I'm not sure that the long-range plan is to suddenly have apartments in the south end of town on whatever available parcel we have. And, because there's no, right now, there's no requirement. It says condos and townhomes, and they could do a few condos, they could do a few townhomes, and the rest could be apartments. And I'm not saying apartments are a bad thing, but
And we've already determined the total number of residential units that can be in this development.
it's 480.
Okay.
Right.
So, through the chair, Jane gave us this nice photograph depicting the parking lot, so I took the time to go on to our town's website. If you take Walgreens, the Rockies Plaza, Health Tracks, and the Sleepy's, add them all up, that's 108,000 square feet of commercial property on 10.4 acres, which includes all the parking all the way out in the back. Just to give you a general idea, like the Health Tracks is basically a 2-story building. You're looking almost 36,000 square feet of commercial space. The Rockies Plaza, it's almost all single. Again, it's roughly 36,000 square feet. Just to give you perspectives, because it's easier to go to Rockies, walk around and go, oh, this is about this much. When you start talking 100,000,
Doesn't take much.
yeah, it sounds like this huge thing, and it is. I mean, that's a big development. But again, it gives you, I'm hoping it gives you a little bit of a perspective on it.
And as Marilyn pointed out earlier, that is one area of town that has a need for services and so forth. And it, businesses, people may, from Connecticut, Long Meadow and so forth, may want to use the businesses in there and avoid driving through our wonderful rotary, and to get to certain spots as well. John just loves the rotary, so.
I go through every time.
We do too.
It's fun.
And
We're
just-
all with it.
Whether it's correct going around or just through.
That's right.
I've
Or
learned
over.
you're taking it back.
Not to beat a dead horse, but
Right.
that was the reason why I personally bought into the concept of mixed use to begin
Yeah.
with, because it was going to be bringing services to the south end of our community. And it's not just for the residents who live there. It's a mixed-use development, and we're looking for, hopefully, as I said, a decent grocery store so that the southern community residents don't have to go to Enfield or Long Meadow or almost Springfield to get their groceries. I mean, it's just one comment.
And we already see the seeming success of the new Shell gas station over there. It doesn't seem to be lacking any business, and so people are certainly
Through
using
the
that.
chair.
Yes, just it.
I feel we're beating the minimum amount to death.
Okay.
We've got the maximum. We have to have faith in any development. Like you said, Marilyn, you want to see services come to the south end. If the need is there and the want is there, we should be saying, all right, we're limiting it to this number, which is 30%. So my feeling is, we're beating the 15%, 20% to death. We'll have the 30%. If this is really wanted in East Long Meadow, people will be standing in line, businesses.
And we're not sure it's really wanted, because we still haven't had a public forum, a real public forum,
No.
to discuss this. And, the first public hearing was advertised in November of 2018, and then they were continued, and there was never anything again publicly to address this. And you're hearing from people, what's going on. We want, they haven't had an opportunity to even weigh in on.
Marilyn's absolutely right. I mean, I think in the last few weeks alone, I get stopped at various places in town and said, hey, what's going on with the package machinery building?
So,
And I tell them what it is, and they're like, really? I didn't know there was a project proceed for anything going on. It is, aside from the great work of LCAT, It has not hit the newspapers as far as I know. It has not hit Western Mass News. It has not hit anything. The average person in town is asking because they don't know. Communication to get the public vibe is not out there.
Through
you
the
know?
chair.
Yes, Sid.
The council has the final say, and they can rearrange our proposal any way they want, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
They could, but typically, historically, what the council does, if there's some substantive change, they refer it back to us.
Okay, and we've had 3 to 4, we've got 3 counselors here, so why don't we vote, come up with a decision and make a decision, vote on 20%, 15%, and move on.
Can you take your 15% and have okay, we're talking about 100,000 square foot.
I'm still looking at thinking 30% because we want this to be a success.
30% maximum.
Max.
Right,
All right, and what's your minimum?
15.
I was thinking, my thought was 15 will work.
I just over the line in Long Meadow. You know, look at what's happening in Long Meadow with their Long Meadow shops. I have no way of calculating in my head what that area is, but it's a booming shopping plaza. And they're not near rail, they're not near, rapid transit. They're unique shops that attract people, restaurants, eateries, coffee shops, whatever. I mean, that's how I envision what would be included in a proposal such as this.
Yeah.
How come it works in Long Meadow? And if it's gonna work in East Long Meadow, this is really,
Well, you're
The best
basically
test
bringing
case.
the clientele, if you're gonna be doing concierge living, that people are willing to pay for somebody to pick up their Amazon packages, as John pointed out in previous presentations. They're gonna also wanna have fine clothing place and fine, maybe upscale, salon services and things of that nature. Because if it does start to fail, where it becomes lower-end businesses start coming in there, then the whole concept of concierge is gonna fall in the face of that. And then we got a much bigger problem of not being concierge living, and then it becomes where we start having school-age kids coming in, and that will really impact our school systems. So the success of this project, it has to be the concierge living as well as the, for lack of a better term, concierge ancillary businesses and services around there. Because if you start putting low-end, bottom feeder, price point businesses in there, coupled with that, and if I were, their target millennial market or senior market, I would feel like, you call this concierge? What kind of concierge do you live on? You want something that has the kind of the vibe, if you will, as Marilyn pointed out, of the Long Meadow shops in there. And if you could have both in there, I think they support each other. And Marilyn's absolutely right. That's a very thriving business. You lose Panera, and then all of a sudden you get a derivative of the
bread company or something.
no, well, no, what's that company? Not Panera. What's the Federal? The Federal opens up.
right.
It's not
Posto.
Yeah, Posto. And it wasn't Panera before that. It was Bertucci's, right?
Right.
So you have Bertucci's, and it goes, and you have something here. So it keeps supporting each other on that. And I think the clientele that want to pay $2,500 for their upscale living don't want to go downstairs and not have a Starbucks-esque type place or a coffee shop that supports that kind of lifestyle.
It's not the model that we're talking about, so that's not our vision.
It isn't.
No, not what you've described.
All right, describe your vision, if you would.
We're describing what we had laid out to you before, so to cater to the people that will live in the town, live around the area, and the people that are here, the clientele, that's the kind of retail, that's the kind of commercial that we're looking for.
All right, and some samples of those type of commercial businesses that you have?
I think John had laid it out
Yeah,
before.
pizza
that
shops
talking
and
about
coffee shops.
Pizza shops, coffee shops, places like that.
Yeah, and we're
Massage.
gonna try and get a small grocer. There's more and more small grocer concepts that are coming out every day. That would be a hope.
And you have the stopgap, and you mentioned about all of a sudden you have families moving in with multiple children. You have the stopgap that we're talking about with a contract with the town. So
Well,
it's
that
not
would
a
be the
model.
community, the host
Yeah,
community
right,
agreement.
so we'll get into that.
Right.
All right, so the bottom, Sid is talking 15% minimum, correct, Sid?
Correct.
And we have on here 20%. What's the feeling? I'll kind of informally poll, I'll start with Connor, your thoughts.
I'd like 10, but I'd be willing to go to 15.
Okay. Marilyn?
I still would like to stay at 20%. I think that 15% is the path of least resistance. I think that, because we'll still get the residential piece booming as we give a minimum of 15%. I'm looking at how to manage the growth of this particular development. And if you're gonna do mixed use states balance, 15% to 85% is not balanced. I just feel that, and even 20%, I mean, in our last go-around, we were looking at 40%.
We were,
And so, because that was what, all the models we've seen.
yeah.
And especially now that we've talked about other uses that could potentially balance or absorb some of that 20%, I still would vote for 20%.
All right, and Sid, any add-on? We know you're at 15.
Hey, you know my opinion. I know the planning board suggested 5%, which I think is too little. I believe 15% would be a great compromise, and still, I look at the fact that the maximum is 30%, and any successful development will want 30% and work to get 30%. So 15.
And Ralph?
I would like 20%. I could settle for 15%. After doing the square footage compilation, seeing what the center is, taking that, putting it over there, like I said, I can go with a 15%.
If you had your,
If I had my
you're writing.
ultimate,
You're
and
writing
I
it.
was developing it,
You have the pen.
He's the
I would be at
politician.
25%, but I think 15% is a minimum, and hoping that a developer is gonna come in with 25% development.
You know, when this was presented to the planning board and the real estate team had come to East Long Meadow for the future developer and painted not such a rosy picture of where this was located. If it's gonna work anywhere, it's gonna work here, because I think of all the other parcels in town. And I asked the question, and I've said this before, is it no longer a good fit? Is mixed use no longer a good fit? And my response was, it absolutely is, we just have to work harder. So that's why I'm sticking to 20%. I feel like that would be at least a fair compromise with the, the ratio. So it'd be 80% residential to 20% commercial.
I'm gonna stay with 20% as well, but bring it back to the full council and let the council have further conversation on it, but I think 20% makes sense in terms of this village concept as well. I mean, I really want to encourage having a true mixed use and not just a huge residential project that, like I said, I'll acquiesce to the wishes of the council, but again, if I had pen to paper and I could write it, I would pick 20%. I could obviously live with 15, but I'm not here to go with what I could live for. I go with what I think is a proper for planning for the development, and I think 20% as well.
So through the chair, should we, once we're done with the document, submit it back with a note that said the subcommittee would recommend somewhere between 15 or 20%, and we want the full council to decide?
No, I think we're gonna come in with a recommendation of what the subcommittee is as a collective is recommending, and then as part of the dialogue with the full council, come in. I mean, my recommendation.
And the public.
Okay.
And the public as well, because I really would love to have less and less people, and it's 100% of the people, not one person knows about this project, except somebody in the inner circle of government. And we need to get the public out there. They're asking what's happening with this building. not a darn clue of
Well, I got a
yeah.
phone call just last night wondering, when are we gonna have a public hearing on this?
Yeah.
Because there are,
There,
yeah.
it's, like I said, I mean, you know, and I've said this multiple times at council meetings. You know, I call out the lack of media coverage.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Shall we vote on this to
All
send
right.
the council a specific number to
All right, I'm gonna
discuss
make,
so the public will
then I will
understand?
I will entertain a motion for what we have, at least on our latest draft, of a minimum of 20%, not to exceed 30%. Can I hear that, a motion being made, and we can discuss it?
I will make that motion.
All right, the motion is made. Is it second for purpose of discussion? I'll second it, I guess. Okay, we'll have discussion on it. All right, so it's 20.
Well, as I see it, it's, no matter what we vote, it's not gonna work.
Aye.
Because we're not gonna have the numbers. We have 2 here, we have 1 there, 10, 15, 20.
I'm not sure that that's the case. I think it would be 3 that would be,
Oh, you
I
said
mean, able-
10%.
I said I'd like to go as
Oh,
low as
okay,
10, but I
alright.
would be acceptable to 15.
May I amend that motion to say, to move it to 15%?
Okay, we can, I
I
can.
would second that amendment.
All right, so we have
An amendment on the floor to
Am-
change the numbers.
to 15,
15%.
not to
Right,
exceed
Right,
30.
Right.
All right, so let's vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. All right, so I'll
3 to
call the
2.
main motion on it. The main motion now, it passed, so it is now 15% for 30. Do I have, any further discussion on that? Hearing none, I'm gonna call a motion on the main motion, a vote on the main motion, that the number to recommend to the council is 15% and not to exceed 30. Do I have, all in favor, say aye.
Did we have a second? What was it? I've lost
No,
track.
no, no, what we
This has gone
did,
back and
no, what
forth.
we did is this, I'll just go over it. The original motion
I
that
did,
you
yeah.
made was
Yes.
20 to 30. I seconded that motion, we were in the discussion.
Right, they did the
He
amendment.
amended it, I voted on the amendment to the
Right.
motion, which brings us back to the main motion, which has been amended now to be 15 to 30. So I don't think we missed any parliamentary
all right,
procedure
okay.
points, am I correct?
Are we good?
All right, so it's again, now we're back to the main motion as amended of 15% minimum, maximum 30%. I'll call a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, so the vote by 3 to 2.
For 15%.
3 to 2, yes, no, for 15% minimum and maximum 30%. I'm just keep an eye on the clock, because we lose this room
In
in
20
20
minutes.
minutes. It goes to someone else.
And keep in mind, the council has the final say.
The council has the
They can
final
change
say with
it.
public hearings and hopefully more than a couple people showing up to the meeting out in the public site. Okay, what was the next bullet point we want to take care of?
The
for tonight?
density, the
Oh,
density of the housing.
All right,
4.2.
yeah.
Well, I see where this is going to go. If we bring the percentage down to 15%, and wanting to adjust the residential piece to create a balance, we'll still have a 3 to 2 vote. So I was the one that brought this up because the 12 acre, maximum density of 12 per acre, I felt was okay if we were talking about 20 to 30%. If we're talking about 15%, I wanted to see a little bit of a balance to adjust the impact of the residential piece, because it will come.
I'm okay with that.
Jeez, you
So what,
shocked me.
so what are you talking about
Well,
number-wise?
okay, I was thinking maybe bringing the, instead of 12 per acre, 10 per acre, which would be 400 units
Okay,
maximum.
so just to be devil's advocate, which I love to do, all right, let's say a petitioner, hypothetically, these guys, succeed in getting the 30% commercial. Can this be a moving thing where if they have 30% business, they hit the high, then they're, to satisfy having enough, people to support these 30% business, that number then moves north?
Right.
Because if it's at 15, we're assuming 15 is gonna be the point, but let's say it's 15 to 30. So if they do go higher, I'm thinking then they should be able to bring in more residential to support the business
So
as an
do
encouragement.
we have a density, but see, how do you fix your?
I know it,
figure-
that's.
You almost have to start with what you would like, the ideal project, what you would like it to look like. Here in East Long Meadow, East Long Meadow doesn't need a huge residential project. We need different offerings of housing. Yes, we've heard that apartments might be nice for empty nesters. I think it's all great, but when you look at the apartment complex, and this was the call that I got last night, the apartment complex over the line in Enfield, and the number of children's toys in driveways. Now, maybe it's grandparents with grandkids, because I had those in my driveway too. So we don't know what kind of an impact that particular development had for the school system,
Fair point.
you know, and so that's why I'm looking at starting out with some, just numbers that are balanced, and this is our first project. You know, it's a leap of faith for us to be sitting here doing this.
Yes. And like I said, I'm supportive of if it's gonna be 15, that they try to get more, a developer comes and try to get more business in there, because businesses are money to the town, employees, working in town, spending in town. And it helps pay for the schools to have more businesses in there. So I don't know, we should be working on the ratios based on the lower level. I think we should be able to have some type of scale, which I don't have the answer to. Connor has a comment, please.
I think 12 still seems acceptable to me, because I think mitigating some of those other impacts that were mentioned would all go back to that host community agreement. I mean, if we're concerned about, more units would mean more people going through the school system, that would be decided on a project-by-project basis.
As far as input, but it wouldn't limit probably the maximum number of units for the proposal that's before the planning board. They'll come in with a proposal. They'll come in with a plan looking maybe in phases, but I anticipate there would be a complete plan coming, and you'll know it then whether they're determining that their plan will look at 15% commercial, or if their plan will look at 20%, or 30%. And my guess would be that the plan would come in at 15%.
See, I'm also fine with 12, and remember, since we're not doing inclusionary as a plus, it's inclusionary within. So with the 12, with the inclusionary,
Yeah,
I'm okay with it that
I
way.
hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Exactly what I was
All
gonna
right,
bring up.
okay, all right,
So we're okay with that?
yeah.
All right, we'll keep it at 12 with the inclusionary. Okay, I'll take a vote on that now. So,
I move that we keep 4.2 at 12 units per acre, so long as it's based on the inclusionary housing.
with inclusionary.
I'll second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Again, we're voting to change 4.2 to be 12 per acre, however, with the inclusionary housing in that number. No further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries unanimously 5-0. Okay, we still got 15 minutes left before we get our butts kicked out.
Don, you're up then.
Yes, Don.
Yeah, this is the hard
Association.
one.
All right, Community Association, I contacted Kevin Maynard and
Town attorney.
the town attorney, and he sent me an email a few weeks ago, which I'll share with you on that. However, one thing that he really reserves the right and wants to do is to look at the final product and have somebody in their real estate office do a further look into it. I mean, and
You mean this final product?
This final product
Right.
before we send it
Okay.
back,
Yeah.
okay?
So
Which-
he didn't look at it at the planning board level?
No, he didn't look at the planning board level as far as I know. Is that correct, as far as you guys know, Connie, and,
No,
he did not?
He did not review.
All right.
No.
Now, the other thought I have too is I do know somebody who is, in my humble opinion, I'm not gonna mention his name, who is, I consider an expert on this subject as well. But again, I'll have to talk to the council and to see whether we have it in our legal budget to have this individual look it over. And the person has extensive experience, again, in my humble opinion, on this particular topic. And so that is something I want to talk to as well, to see whether We want somebody who's, it's not any comments about the law firm and so forth in there. It's just everybody has their wheelhouse, and perhaps this is in the wheelhouse, but just to let the public know what my questions were is, when you have an association, the association is typically, the typical one that most people think of is either a homeowners association, where you have equal votes determined by the number of dwellings within that homeowner, that subdivision. Or more commonly, one that's created as part of a condominium association, where each owner has a vote and a percentage of common area as a function of what size they have, of unit they have as well. What we have here is an absolute hybrid. We have people potentially, if we're using the example that's potentially before us, are gonna be owned by the developer. So, and certain units are gonna be under Chapter 183 created as part of a condominium. So you're gonna have an association within the association. So the association is gonna be created for the condominium, yet at the same token, you're gonna have an association that's part of homeowners, properties owned by the developer. I don't know whether the commercial pieces are gonna be commercial condominiums or commercial rentals. And again, it may be, in this case, we have one, and maybe in another project, we could have a different thing. So we have a hybrid of different forms of ownership, and how does that work together within this project? Because, like I said, clearly, the condominium people, are they gonna be also part owners, percentage owners of a commercial building that's 10,000 square feet, and be responsible to help pay for their replacement of their roof in some future day? So that's why we need some very precise language, and I did ask that question, and I obviously have further discussion on it, and I will share with you guys the email when I get back. So you'll be able, this group anyway, on it to see what the thoughts are, but the thoughts also lend itself to have further discussion of the final product as a whole.
So we're dealing with basically two paragraphs here that discuss
Right.
what you just explained. When this document goes to town council or the town attorney for review in its final form, we need to work on this first.
Yeah.
So the question is, can the town attorney give us the language that we need to address the concerns that are looming out there
Correct.
that we as lay folks probably wouldn't
Yeah,
necessarily pick up?
I'm thinking, I said we may, because this in and of itself, it sounds good, but in reality is, you're gonna have, you're gonna have association within association. You're gonna have the condo association. Does the head of the condo association have like a collective vote of the percentage they own? Or are each individual, so I don't know how this works. You guys have never done one in Massachusetts before, right?
No.
Okay,
Can
yes.
I just, through the chair,
Please.
it's not applicable here, right, but it kind of is. So I don't know to what extent, Don, you may have heard of Chapter 121A projects. So within that statute, they allow condominiums, right? And if you have condominiums, then you're going to need to have a certain percentage of affordable housing, right? And so they have this whole section, it's 18D, right? And I just wrote up on my phone just to make sure I was right. 18D, so it's 121A, section 18D. Look at that, they do talk about community associations and owners, and so it is this mix of, which would be rentals, right? And then condominium owners, because a certain percentage needs to be rentals as well as owners. So maybe take a look at that.
What about businesses?
And also, so check that out. Like,
And
I
also
think
address
it's also
mixed
gonna deal
use?
with, because in 121A, you can have commercial tenants and owners as well. So take a look.
All right.
And think about it. I don't know, like, to what extent the board wants to take any of the language from that, but essentially it's just saying that there's some language out there for this situation. And so, just to peruse, just so I
All
want
right,
to like.
I will review it, and we'll discuss it with Kevin as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Please.
Ultimately, I just think that the language that's in here as far as whatever is approved has to go to the town attorney, whatever, community association agreements and all.
Right.
I think that's the biggest part, because
Right.
I would assume that our town attorney's gonna look and go, wait a minute, you have a condominium association in this, the language has to read like this, and that's why we're doing it this way.
And that town attorney's probably getting involved in the host community agreement
Exactly.
when any
So,
project comes forward.
whatever we do, I wanna make sure that it is upon a review of our town's attorney. And that way there,
Oh,
no matter,
everything
no
is
matter
gonna be
what, it's,
reviewed.
here you go.
Yeah,
We're back to square one.
it's
Yes.
gonna happen, hopefully not.
All right, so you're gonna,
Yeah, I'll follow up on that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely, again, yeah.
All right.
I'll follow up, at least got, even more direction from you guys, especially with this
Okay.
statute side.
good place to start.
All right. When do we wanna have our next meeting? We got the holidays coming up and so forth.
Open the 25th.
25th. We have an Ebenezer Scrooge motion.
Second.
Ho, ho, no, not happening.
Is the 23rd too close?
It might
Everybody
be.
got stuff going on?
Yeah.
16th?
The 16th works for me, if we wanna do it next week.
Okay, because the. How
don't
soon are
even
you
know what
gonna
I'm
be, do
looking
you
at
think you're gonna be
dates.
able to
I
talk
have
to
no-
the, see, that's, there's,
There's something else I gotta tell you about.
okay, all right,
Should we try the 16th?
wait a minute.
Okay.
Well, you gotta see if it's available here.
Okay.
16th, let me share it. It's clean on my schedule.
I mean, I would wanna have some information from the attorney by that meeting in order for us to.
Yeah,
Correct.
I assure you, I will.
And if we don't, I mean, I'm not
There's
sure
no
how
sense in
quickly.
meeting if we don't.
I will
Right.
be on it. I mean, if I can't get an answer, or
Then-
if he's not gonna be available, or
Push it to
his,
the 6th.
whoever, then we have to,
Go to the sixth
Let-
of January.
yeah,
Yeah, let's put the pressure on them.
let's try it.
16.
Let's try the 16th.
Okay, 10:30 here?
That's what I'm hoping. I think Don just stepped out. I bet he's checking the availability of this place.
Okay. Okay, good work.
All right, so I'm gonna wait for
Don
LCAT to
came back,
return,
right.
since we got a couple seconds, and I will open up any comments from anyone in the audience. Connie, John,
So the target
welcome
for.
Paul. Paul's done a great job. Paul's been taking care of our minutes and so forth, and wish
John,
to-
you were starting to
wish to
say?
still have you in the future, but we'll see how that works out. John, go ahead.
I just, for the 16th, our target would be to finish the use table and,
Actually, to go back and the legal issues with the community association, I think, would be our first target. And then the use table would certainly,
Are we gonna be talking about host, language for a host agreement in here?
we did put
Good.
the parameters, and that would,
Yeah.
I think, depend on the proposal. And it says host community agreement to address impact issues such as but not limited to traffic mitigation, inclusionary housing,
All right, I'm gonna talk to
school enrollment,
Kevin about
public
that, too.
safety, peer review as some examples. Because
right.
we're not gonna know what's proposed with any project. That was
Right.
my thinking.
But at least that way there, if a host agreement hits on it and just says not applicable, that's fine, as long as
Right,
we have
right,
some parameters that
right.
just say, hey, make sure you look at this.
All right.
Easier said than
So the
done.
16th is
16th, I just got the thumbs up
Oh, okay,
from Don
thanks,
Mackey,
Don.
that is, thank you. All right, I'm gonna entertain a motion to adjourn right now. We're gonna have the next meeting will be right here in 1 week, 12/16 at 10:30.
So moved. Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, everyone.